And Dr. Ben Carson and I don't agree on a lot. We probably don't agree today is Wednesday. And I respected the fact that even though we disagreed on politics and on the president and other things, that I believe he was sincere in what he said.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We moved from Detroit to Boston to live with her older sister and brother-in-law. Typical tenement, large multi-family dwelling, boarded up windows and doors, sirens, gangs, and a tremendous amount of violence. I remember seeing people lying in the street with bullet holes. Both of my older cousins, who we adored, were killed. I remember Bo, my older cousin, being beaten severely because he would get in trouble with the police a lot. And, speaking of police, this situation with Walter Scott in South Carolina, I viewed that video with the same horror that I'm sure everyone here did. But I also think that we in the African American community have to make sure that we also recognize that sometimes there's fault on our side. Sometimes we have people who do not obey the law, who do not do lawful things, and who are thugs. And when we try to hold them up as heroes, it kind of makes our legitimate complaints not as substantial. So we have to make sure that we look at things objectively and fairly for everybody. It makes a difference. Now, some people have criticized me. They say Carson grew up poor and he must have had some public assistance and now he wants to withdraw all the safety nets. Let me tell you something. That is a blatant lie. That's not anything that I ever wanted to do, have ever said. What I would like to do, however, is create a system that allows people to move from a state of dependency to a state of independence, where they have control over their own lives. Now, we're smart people in this country, and we need to learn how to invest in our fellow man, because it's those relationships and those investments that raise people out of a state of dependency. We need to stop listening to all the people who try to engender division and class warfare. And, what we have right now are people in this world, radical Islamic terrorists who want to destroy us and our way of life. We don't need to aid them by fighting each other and trying to destroy each other. That's not helpful for us as a nation. And what we really need to be concentrating on is our economy. What we need is a robust economy so that people have real options. And only after people have real options should we start talking about entitlement reform. To do that before that time is really cruel and unusual punishment. In the black community, we don't need to wait for other people to help us. The fact of the matter is, there is over $1 trillion worth of assets in the black community. And what we need to learn how to do is to turn our dollars over 2 or 3 times in our own community before we send it out. That's how you create wealth. And as that wealth is created, you must reach back and pull the next person up. You can't just turn your back and live in luxury. And that's how many other communities have done it. That's what we must do. We do not have to be dependent, quite frankly, on anybody. And then we need to talk about stuff that we don't talk about. We need to talk about the fact that 73% of our babies are born out of wedlock. That is a problem. When that woman has that first baby, usually her education ends at that point. And that baby is 4 times more likely to grow up in poverty and end up in the penal system or the welfare system. This is not helpful to our community whatsoever. And unless we begin to talk about it, nobody else is going to talk about it. And we have to stop this cycle, which is devolving over the last several decades. We are actually in worse shape than we were before. And part of it also depends on the fact that we are not holding fast to the values and principles that got us through all the tough times, that got us through slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and all the unfairness that has existed, that strength came from good, solid family values and for believing in God. Many people say the young black male in America is an endangered species because look at the homicide rates in our major cities. Look how many people are involved in the justice system. And it's just not a good situation for us at all. But anybody who's been in education knows that, you know, the young black males, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they're good students just like everybody else, cooperative and nice. And then as they start getting a little older, that peer pressure thing starts to kick in. And then, you know, they start reading their American history book and they notice there's nobody who looks like them who really contributed to the greatness of this nation. And everybody wants to know, where do they fit in? What did their ancestors do? And then they come home and they turn the TV on. Oh, there we are, playing basketball, baseball, football, rapping in those baggy pants, acting a fool on some sitcom. And you begin to gain a very different impression of what success for you means. Up drives this big black Mercedes with tinted glass, and out steps this tall guy with jewels and furs and women. Want to be like me? I can show you how to get all this stuff. Plus, that society has sold you a bill of goods. They owe you. The next thing you know, you're looking at TV, the 6 o'clock news, you see a young man being led away in handcuffs trying to shield his face. You say, that looks like little Johnny. And then it never had to happen because any of us could have taken little Johnny by the hand when he was 6 years old and walked down the streets of New York or any other city and given him a black history lesson he would have never forgotten. You could have started by pointing to his shoes and saying it was Jan Matzliger, a black man who invented the automatic shoe lasting machine, revolutionized the shoe industry throughout the world. Step on that clean street, Charles Brooks, a black man, invented the street sweeper, those machines with the big brushes. Down that street comes a big refrigerated tractor trailer truck. Frederick Jones, a black man, invented the refrigeration system for trucks, later adopted for airplanes, trains, and boats. It comes to a stop at the red light. Garrett Morgan, a black man, invented the traffic signal. And you can also tell how he invented the gas mask, saved lots of lives during the war. And while you're talking about the war, Henrietta Bradbury, a black woman who invented the underwater cannon, made it possible to launch torpedoes from submarines. And you'll see a beautiful black woman walking down the street. A black man did not invent her, but you can use that opportunity to talk about Madam C.J. Walker, a black woman who invented cosmetic products for women of dark complexion, was the first woman of any nationality in this country to become a millionaire on her own efforts. And you walk past the hospital, Charles Drew, his contributions to blood banking, understanding the function of blood plasma. Daniel Hale Williams, the first successful open heart surgery in the world, operative mortality rate less than 1.5%. You look up at the surgical light, Thomas Edison, you didn't know he was black, did you? Well, he wasn't. But his right-hand man, Lewis Latimer, was. And you can tell how Lewis Latimer came up with the filament that made the light bulb work for more than 2 or 3 days. How he invented the electric lamp, pioneering work in incandescent fluorescent lighting. Diagrammed the telephone for Alexander Graham Bell. Was a tremendous inventor in his own right. Most people have never even heard of him. You walk past the railroad tracks. Andrew Beard, the automatic railroad car coupler, spurred on the Industrial Revolution. Elijah McCoy, the automatic lubrication system for locomotive engines. He had so many inventions. When something would come out, people would say, is that a McCoy? Is that the real McCoy? And I'm just barely scratching the surface. Now, so you can see that young man has no reason to doubt that his ancestors played an important role in the establishment of this nation, and he should feel fully a part of this nation and should work very hard to strengthen the fabric of this nation. But you know, I could take that same walk down the street for virtually any nationality and point out all kinds of contributions. You see, that's one of the things that made America into a great nation, because we had so many people with so much talent from so many different places. And our diversity is not a problem, it is a blessing. A lady came up to me in the airport and she said, an African-American lady, I like a lot of stuff you say, it makes a lot of sense, but why don't you want poor people to have health care? I said, once again, you're listening to the propaganda. I want poor people and everybody to have health care. Is health care a right? No, but it is a responsibility of a compassionate society. And we are a compassionate society, and we have the ability to do it. We spend twice as much on health care as the next closest nation in the world. But what about the people who are indigent? What are you going to do for them? Well, how do we take care of them now? We take care of them with Medicaid. What is the annual Medicaid budget? $400 billion a year. About 80 million people partake. 80 million into 400 billion goes 5,000 times. $5,000 is a peach. What if we were to use the money in an intelligent way and take this thing out of the political arena and start taking care of our patients, start taking care of all the people in our country? If we give all of those people health savings accounts, everybody's dollar is of equal value. Another misperception, people say that I hate gay people. I don't hate gay people. I just happen to believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. That's all. You know, it doesn't mean that I hate gay people. And some people seem to believe that you can't have the one without the other. If you don't want them to be married, then you hate them. Absolutely not true. And I will tell you, I really don't care what any man has to say. I care what God has to say. And that is always going to be what centers me. And then there are some who says, I say that there's no racism. Of course there's racism. There will be racism as long as there are people with small minds and evil forces to stimulate them. But I'll tell you how my mother taught me to think about it. She said, if you go into an auditorium full of racist, bigoted people, you don't have a problem. They have a problem. Because you see, they're all going to cringe and wonder if you're going to sit next to them, whereas you can go sit anywhere you want. So, you know, that's kind of the way that I've begun to look at it. Let me just close by talking a little bit about what true success is all about. True success. Using the talents that God has given you to elevate other people. Thank you, and God bless.